Brother, can we turn on this fan?
Yes.
Is it possible?
Yes, possible. This is working actually.
You get that? This is what? It's okay. Hey.
That's it.
Recording in progress. Recording in progress.
So, what I generally I need to show that you remember.
Is it that?
Oh, yeah, the thing is, the camera and the so tentatively, this might right. What do you use? Software.
So you want us to all sit down here?
Yeah, we also put the camera.
I got that.
I switch. I hope the phone will go. I switch.
It's okay. Yes.
Yeah. So, good afternoon. If you have any panelists that I want to give me this, online for okay. Panel question for this one.
Yes.
So, if you have any slides that you want to try my for this question. So, back at the for yeah. Yes, this is the test. Why don't you open it?
Only here, but she can't see. I mean, my friend are only here, she can't see.
What is it?
Only here, but she can't see.
What's that? Anna.
She says she, yeah, she can only hear, but she can't see.
Oh no, I've pinned already. I've pinned this video already. I just pinned this video for everyone to see it. You can see now. Ta-da. All right, so yes, already. Let's see an Adibola. The two is out already. No? The finalists, how many finalists you have for the session? You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let me give one check. So it's actually open the fly for you, right? Your PowerPoint. You have to open this is your PowerPoint.
No, my.
Okay. You just asking.
I'm just saying my present caption.
Okay.
Only.
Okay. Okay. So continue on the camera.
from is that shot at APR. The very big maximum just give that presentation for them. And then they read the daily so. I will not be able to recognize everybody because of our time, but sometimes I'm not so to keep their names. But I remember Dr. Kashmir. I remember my very own CJ, Dr. CJ. Over there. And my sister over there. I recognize you. And my big, another big. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about theater. I want to talk about a particular book that was produced or published 25 years ago. I would say that we should not be reading such books. We should be talking about recent publications. We should be talking about recent scholars. But where would you be if you do not reference materials produced or published by these great scholars? Where would you be as a theatre practitioner? How would you say that you are practicing theatre? How would you compare your past to what you're practicing presently? And how would you go further to say that you have done something out of the ordinary? When we talk about this, it feels like from the contribution so far, with the abstract, a lot of people just want to talk about the theatre. Many of us want to compare what we have at the moment to what we had in the past. And so, I really want us to talk to them because we barely have 1 hour, 30 minutes, and we have four presenters, 5 presenters for this session. We have 2 sessions. Is theater completely dead in Africa, celebrating 25 years of Karin Barber, generation of AIDS? This will be part 1. And my name is Luan Soifuri from the University of Lagos. From the faculty of Pittsburgh, so now the faculty. I would have loved to introduce us one after the other because we try, of course, I do not have the liberty to extend anything, but I'll still based on days. The title will representative. The first on my list will be my very old sister in the Lord, Mrs. Mitchell Barber from the University of Lagos from the Faculty of Creative Arts. And she'll be presenting the transformation of Nigerian theatre from traveling theatre troops, from traveling troops to digital platforms. Please come here. The second on my list will be Ms. Banakat Alao presenting Generate Materialism in Global Popular Theatre, a role of public performer in creation and recreation of cultural narratives. Ms. Banakat. The second on my list, who is also a very close brother, is Mr. Jude Azubike Dodo. So if you haven't learned that we're going to be playing here today, please know. It is an academic environment, but at the same time, I don't like all those attention that we bring to our presentation. I just want to relax and have fun, so we really forget it. And very, very interactive too. Yes. So, Jude will be presenting Rhythmic Legs and Audible Voices at the Staggering Stage, African and Theatre. To Dr. Steve James Ishawa, he will be presenting Reflecting Continuation of Theatre in Karin Barber's Generation of Faith. Adada, or Dada, TPG, or Dada, TPG, Eurodano, roundabout. Dr. James. Dr. James. We need one more chair.
That's all.
Are we this? Yeah, we have one more person. You carry your chair. No, you ask. Okay. No, Dr. Israel, where I will be presenting beyond the liturgy and liturgy celebrations, the Catholic Church, and the development of theatre in Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, scholars and friends, and of course friends, I welcome the very first presenter. This is Mitchell Barber Akibola. I have 10 minutes to him. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, scholars in the house, and the full panelists. My name is Michelle, and I'm honored to have this conversation exploring the transformation of Nigerian data from indigenous traveling troops to the boundless opportunity of digital platforms. I'd like to take us very quickly on a reflective journey of paying homage to where we're coming from. That's the Yoruba traveling theatre per se. The Nigerian theatre originated from indigenous performances, rituals, storytelling, and which laid the foundation of modern theatrical expressions that we see today. It's important to know that there are three different eras in the Nigerian, there are different eras in the Nigerian theatre. We have three colonial era, which is linked to the religious ceremonies, social gatherings, while storytellers, did their own thing. We also have the colonial era, which was greatly influenced by westernization. The likes of Hubert Ugunde, Kola Omola, Oniyade Jobi, carrying theatre on their backs from town to town, telling the stories of the people, telling the cultural, telling our cultural identity, which then leads us to the post-independence era. In this era, theatre had a new job. It was beyond moving from one place to the other. We were giving a nation. We just got a baby, all in the name of sovereignty. And then the likes of Wole Soyinka and Bola Rotimi used their works to critique colonial rule, to advocate for independence and challenge social injustice. And then we have contemporary Nigerian theatre, which is an era that experienced remarkable growth in terms of style, in terms of approach. But here we can say that theatre has gradually, not entirely, moved from the bodily presence to the digital space. Aside from theatre productions that tend to use stage performances, we now see performances on social media platforms, which then drives the question in focus: is theatre completely dead in Africa? Now, there's no doubt that the digital shift is exciting, especially to young people who see it as a means of expressing their ideas, as a form which tilts it towards eclecticism. However, the question is theatre completely dead in Africa? In attempting this question, study would focus on three main objectives. First of all, is to explore the conceptual meaning of the word theatre. And then two, to examine Yoruba theatre as being mirrored in the book of Karin, which looks at the Yoruba traveling theatre. And then third objective is to assess how digital platforms are transforming the theatrical spaces. Now, looking at the conceptual word theatre can be seen as a performance, it can be seen as a process, and it can also be seen as a space. Now, as a performance, it involves actors, it involves action, it involves performance. As a process, it involves the process of creation, the process of the rehearsal, the improvisation process. Putting Aribaba in her words, she says, the plays in Yoruba traveling theatre were generated, not simply written, evolving from conversations, shared experiences, and collective memory. Yoruba theatre serves as a mirror of our society. Now, in the generation of plays by Karin, it explores the conceptualization of Yoruba traveling theatre. The main focus of this work was to, one, look at the play process, which had to do with the idea that the play is written, and it's not just written, it's from experiences. It also looks at the performance process, which moves from the idea conception, the scripting of the play, the rehearsal process, and the post-performance evaluation. Now, audience here are seen as co-creators in the work. Now, the third focus of her work is the importance of oral tradition. And then finally, we have the significance of cultural literacy, which rests on the fact that shared theatre is based on shared body of cultural knowledge. Now, this study is hinged on two theories. First of all, the performance theory by Richard Fechner, and then we have the orality, literacy, digitality continuum, which is propounded by Walt Georg and Karin Baba. Now, I'm focusing on this because it tends to say that theatre, Yoruba theatre, it traces the communicative evolution and aesthetics. It's not just each of these things, that the orality, the literacy, and the digitality cannot be treated in isolation, but then it's a process. From orality, it moves to literacy. From literacy, it moves to the digitality. So you cannot isolate any of this. They all work hand in hand. Very quickly,
quickly, looking at the theater, Onyade Jobi's theater, which is the case study of Karin's seminal work. The features of traditional model theater are one, it's mobile. It moved from place to place, from town to town. It came to the people. And then we also see that the Yoruba theater was communal. It relied on collective memory. It relied on oral tradition. It relied on cultural codes. And it was also responsive. It thrived on audience feedback in real time. And then it was also accessible. You know, looking at this traditional model, we now move to the digital age, the shift to the digital age change. We have online rehearsals, we can have rehearsals online, which is the performance process. We have rehearsals online. You don't need to connect. All you know is you're having rehearsals, and then you just need 1 week of physical rehearsal. And in fact, there are performances that are done on Zoom live. So I think during COVID era, we had Zoom performances. But then digitally archived plays and live show productions came to limelight in the digital age. Virtual audiences contributed to the discourse, which are seen in the comment section. Now, what has endured between the traditional theatre era, the traveling theatre era, and the digital era? Now we can say that audience still participate. There's still the participation of the audience. We can say that, oh, the audience are not there. But then, like I said, every click relieves the process. You might say, oh, the performance was done 2, 3, 5 years back and was posted online. But every time each person clicks, the performance relieves the process. You can communicate directly, like you are in that time. And so I feel the research points to the fact that audience is a participant, and then there's an improvisational energy of the traveling show, because you tend to move from one place to the other, and then you have cultural embeddedness. Now, here in Africa, we can't hide the fact that this transformation brings both opportunities and tension. I'd like to point out Onyade Jobi's son, Adijiran, the interview he had with Punch newspaper. He told the interviewer, like, I wish my father had the opportunity, I wish I had the opportunity to take my father's films abroad. Now, this is one thing that our predecessors didn't have. You know, as much as these platforms allow for documentation and archiving, this process was not affordable in the time of the likes of Hubert Odude and Onyade Jobi. The question now we're asking is, are we gaining reach? Yes, we're on digital platform. Are we gaining reach, or are we really passing the in-depth message that we're trying to pass? Yes, you can be gaining reach. You post something online, and then the entire world sees it within seconds. But then, are we passing that real information that is being mentioned by Karin Barber, that every place has cultural literacy? And then secondly, how do we maintain the cultural specificity in global spaces? How can we still maintain this? It's very important. And conclusion, I'd like to point that Nigerian theatre is not dying, rather it's mutating. It's mutating to the current environment. It's mutating to the time that we're in now, to the technology advancement. And I'd like to say that this is why discourses like this are brought to limelight by the LSE conference and every other conference, where scholars come together to talk about this mutation, to talk about this adaptation. I'd like to point that we as practitioners, we should not just document, we should document, we should critique, and we should nurture the transformation with here, ensuring that we don't just digitize our African culture, we don't just digitize our African culture, but then we do not de-Africanize. That's the main key. We do not de-Africanize the cultural content. Rather than while we're innovating, we must not erase that cultural content that Karin Barber has mentioned in her work. Thank you very much for this. I was just going to tell her that we have 1 minute then. I'm glad that you're able to manage that. Thank you very much. And thank you for saying so much. So when she was talking, a lot of things came to my mind. The first one was whether the theatre actually died during COVID-19 and the rest of them. And then, I mean, you just re-echoed what I would have thought somebody else would have said anyway. Because, I mean, theatre never died. So when you look at the works, for instance, of like, so you mentioned Richard Chetler and the rest of them, I know that theatre will never die, because beyond what is being performed, the whole constellation of events, of a lot of things happening all at the same time, is tend to be theatre. So for me, theatre never dies, whether we like it or not. My only conflict, or some kind of conflict that I seem to have with myself, is whether we can say that what we see on the screen, because in talking about digitality, we should also be very, very careful.
Do you think that what you see on screen, at what point would you say that there seems to be a dichotomy between what we see on screen as being theatre and what we see, what we observe? Do you understand what I'm saying? I mean, we see a lot of, when you watch the works of, for instance, Tyler Perry, do we still refer to those things that he does, those films, using those filmic elements, those theatrical forms? Do we still refer to all of those things as theatre? We will open the conversation, but let us continue on the book for now. The next presenter I have introduced will be, of course, Barakat Temitope Alao.
Good afternoon, esteemed professors, scholars, artists, and fellow theatre practitioners. My name is Barakat Temitope Alao, and it's a privilege to be part of this conversation. Is theatre completely dead in Africa? Celebrating 25 years of Karin Barber's generation of play. My paper is titled Generative Materialism in Yoruba Popular Theatre, the role of audience and performer in the recreation of cultural narratives. Specifically, I examine how audiences and performers function as co-creators of meaning in two-stage productions. One, Tafawa Balewa, The Golden Voice of Africa. Two, Fire Starter, The Musical. But let's just delve in. What is generative materialism? That should be the second slide. Generative materialism, as introduced by Karin Barber in the generation of plays, invites us to see theatre not as a fixed literary artifact, but as a process of emergence, being responsive to its audience, context, and community. In Yoruba popular theatre, especially among itinerant troupes like Onyabijobi, Barber observed that scripts were just served at certain points. However, performances were largely shaped by improvisations, audience responses, local incidents, and cultural memory. This meant that the play was not authored in the traditional literary sense, but generated through performance. While today's performance may not feature the high level of visible improvisation, I argue that the spirit of generativity is still present, especially in how performers and audiences, co-construct meaning through emotional exchange, affective reading, and post-performance reflection. The aim of this research is to explore how generative materialism manifests in contemporary stage productions, especially in institutional and structured performance environments. I adopt a comparative method analyzing two live performances which I listed before, Tafawa Balewa, The Golden Voice of Africa, and Fire Starter, The Musical. So what did I do? I focused on real-time interactions, emotional responses, and post-performance reflections to reveal how meaning is co-produced in these spaces. Let me just move to my first case study, which is Tafawa Balewa. Tafawa Balewa dramatizes the life of the Nigeria's first prime minister. Though it was scripted and choreographed, the production makes space for audience effects, which is very, very evident in the things that happened while the production was going on. For example, there was a particular key scene where, the national anthem was being recited, and you could see the audiences following, also reciting. However, it was subtle, you understand. And then there were key moments where the audiences were laughing, responding to what was going on stage, and also moments where they were like feeling, empathy. You could see that they were really connecting to what was going on the stage performance. Yeah. Also, I would like to say that in popular theatre, like I said before during my introduction, most of the performances that happen dwells on what happened within society. I like to say that Tafawa Balewa is highly historical because it's talking about Nigeria's first prime minister. So I would say that it is generative in this form. I would say what makes this performance generative is not only in the historical context, because we have already established that it is generative in terms of the historical context. However, that's not the only thing. We also have the emotional empathy, its tears, and its regional, adaptability. Also, even in terms of costume, many of the characters were wearing costumes that depicted different ethnic groups. So we could see people, responding to that. This is my group. You understand? We could see that responsiveness. Also, let me now move to the area of the post-performance interaction. Here we have media houses, interview the audiences to know their perspective of what happened on stage. And I remember an history student saying,
even though she's an history student, the things that she did not know before, she has learned it today. You know, that the play has opened her mind. I remember school student saying that for a whole prime minister to be humbled, I have to be humble. What am I trying to say? Stage performances are didactic in nature, and these are the things that also happen during the, Yoruba popular theater. So this generativity skill persists. Now let's move to the. I would also like to end that Tafa Balewa to say that Tafa Balewa becomes generative by transforming history into a living co-produced experience between the performer and the audiences. Then the second case study would be Firestarter the musical. That takes a different route to generativity through emotional resonance and shared social trauma. Firestarter is a vibrant, immersive production adapted from Shola Amarabi's poetry collection and directed by Kenneth Iwowo. I would say that it explores themes of resilience, identity, humanhood, and self-discovery. But one thing that I love about the performance was that before the play began, a musician came on stage and he set the mood for the stage by teaching the audiences a chorus to a song that he was going to perform. That was interesting for me because it set the mood for the production. We liked the chorus, and then when he began singing, when he got to the chorus part, we were also singing. It was very, very exciting. People were laughing, they were already connecting to what was going to be unveiled in the production. So I feel like it immediately positioned the audience as participants, creating an atmosphere of early participation and emotional connection. Also, during the performances, we have different key parts where there was singing and humming to familiar songs. Audiences could relate to some songs and then they were singing. But also, there were some parts where the audiences also, when they, listen to some of the dialogues, I think they could connect to because you could see them sighing and then looking and then humming and all of that. So they were actively involved in the performance. Also, I would say that even the actors, they adjusted while they were performing. In popular theater, it was highly improvised. But even now that it's scripted, we still have characters, the person performing, improvising in terms of when there are some key lines that they would like to throw to the audience to hear what the audience has to say, about that. Then also in terms of post performance interaction, I could say there was a particular audience who said that was his first time watching a theatrical production, and then he said, I learned about starting a fire in me, that he's going to go back home and think that the play really moved him. So I feel like audience performer connection still exists. That is what I was trying to, look into. And I would say that Firestarter is generative not through literal improvisation, but through affect, rhythm, and social recognition of shared pain and healing. It's not just musical, it's like a call to action, while also being, didactic. Then I know that in my explanation, I've tried to compare Yoruba and now, but let me still just, say one or two things. I would say that in comparing what Barber described in Yoruba popular theater, I would say that in comparing the generativity, I'll say then it was open air informal setting. Now it is, theater, auditoriums, and all. Then it was heavily improvised scripts. Now it's structured, yet open to interpretive delivery. Then it was verbal audience interpretations. Here it is reflective and emotional feedback. But this one is in terms of these two case studies, because I know some performances whereby the audiences, their response are not subtle. It is very, very visible. I remember back in school, there was a particular performance. Let me just quickly, brief on that. Once Upon Forever by Femi Osofiso. The way the director ended the theatrical performance was on a stalemate, whereby he wanted the audience to decide what was going to happen at the end of the performance. But we, the actors, we already knew how we were going to end it if the audience picked this. If they pick that, so we already know how we're going to end. Because it's a way to make them, participate in what was going on. So this is the part that I'm trying to look at. Does that generativity still persist now? Of course it does. Even when we link it to what happened today, while we were in the keynote, yeah, we saw a man dressed in Igbo attire, and then he was playing the flute. If you notice, it wasn't just stationary in the center stage. No, he moved. He was trying to connect with the audience. And I could remember that there was a particular part where he went to meet someone dressed in
Hausa attire, so I presume that it might be an Hausa man. He also understand the message, but it was moving. I could see the white woman on stage. She was also, everybody was happy. Even when the Hausa man was singing, we don't know the meaning to what's saying, but all of us started, clapping to read it. This is what we call audience and okay. So I would just like to end to say from both case studies, we see a contemporary model of generativity at play. While Barber's original model emphasized flexibility in script and setting and all of that, generativity still occurs through, presently the emotional design, performance adjusting to audience energy, post-show discourse, in interviews and online and all of that. While Tafawa Balewa is generative in terms of historical, inviting audience to remember together, Fire Starter is social, helping us to feel and process together. Then I would like to conclude that theater, even in this modern structured form, remains alive and generative. The power lies in its ability to activate memory, co-create meaning, and also evolve through participation. Baba's concept helps us to see theater not as a finished product, but as a cultural event continuously shaped by audience energy, collective emotion, and dialogue. So productions like Tafawa Balewa and the First the musical, thank you, sir. Reminds us that theater is not just to be watched. No, it's to be felt, it's to be shared, and it's to be remembered. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Generative materiality. Honestly, sometimes we have to read and reread some of these ways. When we think about the theory of evolution, when you think about the theory of evolution, you would understand that there's absolutely no way that anything or any human is going to die forever. Do you understand? At the end of something, there's a rebirth at the end of something. And that's why I think that theater is never going to die anytime soon. Now, I also think that because you mentioned that there seems to be some kind of connection between the audience and the performer, I've always thought that we should find time to talk a bit about this psychological connection. Because beyond what is saying on stage, for instance, I think that the performer and the audience must exist within a psychological space to understand what's happening. And that's the only reason why you can say that you're taking a message or that you're taking the thematic trust of the performance woman and all that. So thank you so much for this generative materialism so much. Yes, sir. The third presenter will be Mr. Jude. I don't like that stage. Kenji. No, yeah.
This is what Okay.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. Please permit me to stand on all existing protocol. My name is Judas Wike KG, and the title of my paper is Rhythmic Legs and Audible Voices of a Staggering Stage, Africa and Theatre. From that name, the Rhythmic Legs and Audible Voices, you could see that, you could see that the problem is not actually on the rhythmic legs and the audible voices. They are constant, they are consistent, they are up and down, but the problem is that staggering stage. Why do we say we have a staggering stage as far as Africa goes? Now, I use Nigeria as a microcosm to really talk about Africa. Please can go on to introduction. The continuous survival, growth, and development of every profession is dependent largely on the ability of its existing professionals to introduce new and upcoming potentials into it while the old and tired give way. That is the consistency in every profession. While the old give way, they find a way. There is a system in which the new come on, and that ensures the survival of that. Now, in the theater, the system is the same. For example, Hubert Ogunde's theater started with Egun Dalari Jochu. This is where Hubert Ogunde started. And there are two ways in which Nigeria used to raise artists.
one is through the troop, while the other one is through Western education. You can see that Hubert Ogunde started with the troop, while Soyinka was through the Western education. Now we can see other names that have made sure these are the system through which the likes of other people started, and they put Nigeria and Africa on the global stage. And as of this time, artists live and survive by the theater. But coming now that we are in these contemporary times, can we say the theater of that time and the theater of now is the same? Well, I don't know what you think, but I think it is not the same. The theater, or maybe I will give the answer at the end. But the thing we are noticing right now is dragging the theater down. As of that time, the technological advancements we have now, we don't have it there. But how come that now that we have these technological advancements that should make performances better, we are not having it except in the rural areas? Please, the next. This brings us to the objective of this paper, which is identify the remote and immediate causes of the death of theater. Now, I bring it to Musa Dauda Ena's Banquet of Treachery as a paradigm. In his play, he brought Nigeria. He tried to look into different aspects in the art and the other. It is not just about other fields of life. The theoretical framework for this is the symbolic interactionism theory. Then the methodology is the document review methods, and the instrument for analysis, the content and discourse analysis. Now, these are the findings. These are the reasons why the theater we have now, it cannot be compared as theater we have then. One is from that troop again. That is where the problem starts. Exploitation of theater artists from private troops to companies. Like I said before, in the past, artists feel they live and survive from this job. I have had a case where somebody will take somebody to a performance, and what you keep hearing is that the client has not paid. The client has not paid. But the person who is running this thing has a car. It's living happily until you have to hear from somewhere, until you meet the person, the client is there who said, I have paid. And that is one of the things. And as at this point, if you cannot get the interest of the artist, as at this point, that mindset of trying to think which other profession they will get into starts. The next one is the accreditation of universities that do not have the facilities to run theater arts as a course. We all know this. Year in, year out, theater arts. Like I said, this is true. Then the second one where we recruit people that will come and take up the stage is through the universities. But year in, year out, people go for accreditation. You will see a theater that is not even fit to be called a theater in a university. Most times in federal universities, in fact, in the new federal universities we have now, some, I cannot cover all of them. You see these things. They don't have what should be called a theater, but NUC will send people to come. Before you know, they accredit them. And students graduate just by reading books. They graduate, but it's as at the time after their graduation, when they go into the labor market, that's when they will discover that they have actually learned little or nothing. And moreover, the theater is practically inclined. That is what gives you, what puts food on your table, is performance-based. The other one is the running of theater art courses with lecturers that are only theoretically sound. It happens. We know these things. At times when there is need to fill up a vacant position, you see nepotism playing in, you see they don't bring in people who know these things. It affects the learner that should come up later in life and take up those positions. Some universities display of sectionalism in employing lecturers mainly from their state of origin and they attempt to sectionalize federal institutions. these things happen. It's just that maybe for some reasons we don't want to talk about it, but I think it is affecting the theater as it is now. That is why you will see someone who told you, I actually read theater. When you say, okay, what do you major in? Maybe dance, maybe directing. And so by the time you say, okay, come and show us what you can do, okay, take this play, direct, or give us there will be a problem. But when you come to theory, the person can begin to quote names and names of people that are dead and long gone. But that thing that should be done practically will not be here. The political, ethnic, religious, and sectional maneuvering in the selection of these and HODs. It happens. Now there are some of, and it is my view that since theater is practically inclined, people that will take up this proposition should also be practically inclined. I'm not really playing that on the theoretical aspect. No, there should be a level of, but you cannot have somebody who is not practically inclined heading a department or a faculty in the arts. And then definitely if you have it there, then they say once the head is bad, every other part of the body becomes a problem. Please. No? Is that? Yes. It can't go. Okay. Okay, all right. There are others down there that are really okay. Please, to the last one. So, in order for us to bring theater back to where it should be, these are little recommendations that I did. They should ensure that HODs assign consistently on competence in the theater. Universities should ensure that check and balances mechanisms, which will lack in most theaters. And we can read them down. Thank you for listening.
Wow. Thank you so much. I think we want to recognize the presence of one of our very good bosses in the house, practitioner and journalist, and any other thing that you know, any other thing good. Please join me as I welcome someone and Nicola. I'm sure this will learn from talk for years. So thank you so much, Joe. I sort of like your perspective, Suji, because we went the other routes. Because I mean, aside from looking at performance, there are so many aspects of theater that people seldom talk about. So I like the fact that you have gone to looking at competence within the practice in higher institutions and all of that. I would say that institutions have their own peculiarities and their own dynamics. And I think I've also mentioned some of them, which of course should stay us to our realities. What are we going to discuss? I will go to looking at the next presenter, which is Dr. Steve James Shamahai.
Good afternoon. I'm here, Minister James. Title is Reflecting on the Completion of Theatre in Karin Generation of Trees. Or Kata, thinking able to done in draw aspects. I want to say, first and foremost, Karin generation plays reflect attitudinal nuances of Yoruba identity, with things like theater, social feeling, performances, identity, cultural productions, and consumption of theater and social activities. I picked this data because I was born in the back. And I know what they call it. It don't be our major focus. All drums they say talk, but they say it's a talking drum. Mm-hmm. And it's from the lineage of people we call iron. It's meant for the initiates. Only those people who went to school to learn these drums can understand when the drum is played. You might not understand that talking aspect of it, but you might enjoy doing it. Hands. Somebody, the person might be playing to abuse you and you dance. Remember this song? And you are dancing. So, but somebody who knows what he's saying, looking at you as a fool. But of course, he did not understand. And this has been a generational nuances of Yoruba people. The Dundun drum, because it's from the lineage of the Anya, and they still with it. Sometimes they even ship the drum, but people worship. So people use it as when I said about the Gungu, what they do when I say of that is because those people go and look at those people who play drum for after the meeting, they always wear agbada and it's common drum. They not say, ilé wọn náà nù ní, ilé wọn náà nù ní, ilé ọ̀dọ̀rẹ̀ wò, ilé wọn náà nù ní. That means see their house. The house are so small, so tiny like the glass house. But then the other people hear that one, they will fly. But then the fight starts, you see those men put their drum under their brother. And that's what they call in the answer, they say lungi. The other one they say call. They just you see there because they are fermented that trouble everybody begin to fight. Then now look at it from that angle, come back to the normal our Ofuji people. When somebody want to tell somebody, want to praise the Oga, when they want to collect money from somebody, and say, meaning that you see out there, you are not their mate, you are their father's mate. But the person that is doesn't understand will just be dancing. Why the people want to spread the money? And this has continued to be Yoruba nuances, Yoruba identity. But then, like it or not, Yoruba has chants, but because we are focusing on the drum, we are going to stay on the drum and the talking drum. And if you are not an issue, you cannot understand most of the things they say. I have so many those talking from other concepts. It's about just so they will pause it. They will run. They will meet the people on the front to go and cause another trouble. Same thing, if you look at the Fuji people who play these days, when they begin to talk to themselves, they know what they are saying. But because you don't know, you just begin to dance and they might be cautioning somebody. There's some words they will say that they are cautioning somebody. The drum caution, the drum instruct, the drum give words of opponent. And it is because Karin said, it is because the Yoruba concept on social commentary. Understand me? So when they are talking with the drum, for the initiate, we understand what they are saying. But you that don't understand what they are saying, they must say, run for your life. When they say run for your life, they are coming to the trouble is, while some others are moving away because you don't understand. That's why it is a continuous thing. And let me just give you some other words that you can hear from them that will give you some other meaning. Then you not go to, when you remember sometimes ago, there was a meeting from I did my staff that said, It's not talking about love, it's not talking about, but they tell me to be Shagari one year KG. I was doing by and so these things are continuous. Either you like it or not, you cannot take it away from your bars. They have that thing, and because God said, okay, because we use those things, it cannot die. You can reform it. You can try as much as possible to probably say contemporize it. These days you can see battle drum, do drum even abroad. And people always go there to go and teach them the drum. It's just a bang, 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 bang. They don't talk. Battle drum stammers. That's why it has three. But Dundun speaks. And their accomplice is just giving the partner. And let me now give you another one that is a little bit on the when they say it is probably posturing. The way the posturing is that said that ẹ̀yin ọ̀ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ tell them pé ọmọ tí ìyá ìjẹ́ bí sílẹ̀ èmi ló bí. That means a mother which died and you are happy. Who doesn't know that that child born is more dangerous than for you to don't understand what they are saying. You just be laughing, oh, yeah, is this, oh, but they have told you that be careful that this year that is there. That child might be dangerous more than that. So for me, but Canada's war that has told us that it's a continual thing, it cannot die. But because of modernism, civilization, and contemporarity, things are beginning to change. But still, I've been seeing people trying as much as possible to form or to do other drops, but I've not seen anywhere where to do as they repeated. I've seen Bata being repeated, TB everywhere, but you know, I've never been. And that's why it's a talking drum. And if it doesn't know how to hold it, I think for you to be able to play that drum, you must have that techniques of joining the strings to say what you want to say. Sometimes they'll say, let us use to play national anthem. All of us will hear what it is, but then you listen to it, you hear what it's saying, and it is continual. But that's said, for us to be on that level, so that most of our culture, our bases have been eroded by modernism, contemporarity, and things are going away. But I believe that theater in this area, the Yoruba area of drumming, which is Adabata, Ndungbe, or everything, is still concrete. The way it is, and by the time you get to Oyo, you hear them. By the time you go to anywhere, you hear them. Only 1 minute, don't hear. And then that's why I say it cannot die. It cannot ever die because it has come to speak.
Let's talk about the schedules. They are not talking about facial body. They are saying you put up to space, even when they are not talking. When they say aesthetics, beyond those Emmanuel Kant and the rest of them, they are talking about a whole lot of things. How you can hold a drum and play that drum. And you are saying so many things with the drum. If you are not an initiate or if you are not conversant with that culture, you're not likely to understand what they are saying. So thank you so much. I give you to have a last presenter. That's definitely not you. Dr. Israel Pepe.
Good afternoon. My name is Israel. Israel Mame actually means I know myself. Beyond the liturgy and liturgy celebrations, the Catholic Church and the development of theater in Nigeria. I want to say a few things before I begin. You can read through that, but I am motivated to say this and present in this manner because I'm as much as possible trying to be drama and performance. But I'm credit that the stage director and the playboy, Emma J. and Hargreaves, they talked about that when we were talking about, instead of using a monologue, they did a montage, like an interview kind of thing. Now I'm going to be using photographs. I just started with an opening day. Okay, so we have that. But the concern here is looking at what has happened in February in Uhebe, the All Saints Seminary, where they hosted the 6th edition of the All Seminary of Nigeria Festival. The festival is quite interesting, but this year's was the 6th. Okay, my motivation for doing this is because I'm basically a performance person. And I'm just going to mention something to me here where it says that much ado about breath. We keep putting all of these concepts and the rest. Meanwhile, we have always been doing it. And that's what Karin Barber actually did. The idea of the popular theater. And that theater is that which is with us, that which resonates with us, with music, dance, and everything. So what she's just doing is to look at Oye and the rest and say, okay, this is how we are, and this is what should be. Next slide. Dark Ages and the medieval mind, because it's a Catholic church. Okay, it was brutal after the Roman period. And then we see the minds of St. Augustine, who in his confession says that the theater is like this. These persons cannot come into the city of God. Okay, but then comes the Jesuit dramas, 16th and 17th centuries. And that theater was basically rhetorical to teach seminarians as it were. So the church which drowned the theater, it's the same church that the theater will resonate from. Now, the festival has a theme for this year: our faith, our culture, our faith, and our hope. Probably because this year is the year of hope. That's the thematic concern. And so each of the seminaries is expected to do a play around that thing, however they can interpret it. And interestingly, I first attended and worked with the seminary since 2007, and it was amazing what I saw there. There's a photograph I didn't put. I would have loved to use that photograph to begin. But the script was written. They had their audition until I came in and we started to develop the script to fine-tune it to make it theater. These drums were SS Peter and Paul, University of SS Peter and Paul in Bodija. It's very interesting I mentioned SS Peter and Paul because something happened to them. Everybody dreads them when they are coming to the performance. There are 13 seminaries who take part in this. The last one was Alpine. So dress rehearsals and formators and all input. At that point, we finished rehearsing the play and the formators, that's the rector and the rest, they looked at the performance. The all is just the other seminarians. Oh, this place should be like this and the rest. And I had to hold my head, self-reflection. No, we're doing theater and we have to surprise them. The other person. So, in fact, the theater the festival allows for you to get persons to superintend you, but you must not have external performance. Okay, this is the bishop of Auchi Diocese, Junior. Okay. We have come. Parade. Let the festival begin. Okay, I think this is St. Albert in the new seminary at somewhere at Djibouti or so. This is their now Abiriba. But this is very interesting, very interesting. And there was something that my friend noticed what we were playing. You cannot play something else with this. You know, they do that in school, whereas it's just very spiritual thing. Importantly, these guys are seminarians. They are seminarians. So please take note. Cross-dressing. This was what shook me the first time in 2007. And I needed to take photographs this time. You know that I no phone now, but I was really prepared. That's a young man. But see how dressed he is. You find where have you? From the land of the rising sun. Okay, this is from the play 2, the St. Augustine Seminary. You know, just see, I'm not sure any of my students will not think about doing this. And the two of them that followed me to the festival were really overwhelmed by what they are saying. Okay, this ends the marriage. I will say Adama. Okay, still a seminarian. Okay, so let's peel in the performance, the festivals begins. Stage presence, costumes, the whole works. What I also did as consulting to the seminary was to bring lights and all of that, and also with the performances too. You know, we wanted the other seminaries to come in a day before, which they did, but to work with us so that they can work with the lights, you know. But usually before they go for all these festivals, they carry their own set in their buses and all of that. We said we could make it minimal as it were, but some of them listened, but some of them did. But you see what they have done here. This is Idoma and Tiv. This is a seminary from somewhere around the basin. Of course, another beautiful one. These guys are from Akwa Ibom, you know, and that's a woman there by the corner there, but a man actually. Okay, this is about stage business now. What am I looking at here is the professionalism. I wasn't involved in these performances. The one I was involved with, we'll see much later. But this is what these guys are doing. And you have 5 minutes to set up and 5 minutes to strike, to do a get out for the other persons to take. And you have 20, 30 minutes to do your play. There's a panel of judges, and those judges are from the academia, from the local school around the area, Ekoma and University of Benin. Okay, the priest and the accusers. One of the things that you needed to do with the performance is to also bring the church into it and how that relationship exists, whether it's dialectical or whether it's on the other side. So that's a woman too again, but a man actually. Okay, this is Benin. So you always have to use from the local to do that. So here they use the Benin motif. Interestingly, you notice that there are dances in the performances, there's storytelling at the very beginning. Okay, husband and wife. This is interesting. This young woman there, or young man, I've known him since he was a child, but I never knew his brother is my godson, you know. But he went to buy a first boat, the first this thing to use for this performance to make it more like natural. That was interesting for me. It was live streamed, and all the schools had that, and they had this interactive thing. So if you actually zoom closer, you see there they say, this guy just hit him and the rest. For me, what I was trying to prove in terms of me thinking about my PhD, it's about the language that they can understand. And language is encapsulated in how we behave, how we dress, how our attitudes are. And Shrika critically talks about this in the beginning of Alapata, where we tend to base our lives instead of. So let's be who we are. And that's why the theater will not die until we take our culture. Thank you very much.
So my question is, cross-dressing or role playing? Cross-dressing or role playing? Cross-dressing, Israel or role playing?
I think.
Let me answer your question.
Okay.
As researchers, we should have this very open mind to everything because we know exactly what we did. So we saw that first, and then of course we knew that it was also some kind of role playing. We knew that. But I mean, you must have this mind that wants to interrogate everything, a mind that wants to receive, and a mind that is ready to. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now we only have 10 on $500 here. So we only have that set of, we want questions, we want suggestions, we want this paper to get really better, because they are very good papers already. But I mean, we welcome questions. Just 10 seconds. One, let's take numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's have 5, 6 first. And then we can go on after that. 30 seconds. Thank
you so much. I think your discussion was so insightful. And also connect with all of those now being born with partially So I want to ask, you spoke about Tutu and Congo. I want to know if they are both are safe because we would all say at Congo. You thought about Tutu. Now, to know if they are safe. Don't know if you go. This year.
of the traditional spirituality, what were their reactions? How did their reactions interact with their wearing of these costumes or portraying of these characters? That's something I would like to see in the world.
Number 3. So,
Okay.
yes.
One thing.
No.
Okay. What I would like to ask is, Mark, I wouldn't know if you have literature that says that data is dead in Nigeria before you try to. That would also say, okay, from that. Sorry, that would also set the mood of the discourse. Are you sure there are literature that says that that data is dead in Nigeria? It could also help, in trying to acknowledge your own narrative. That's what. And okay, you in your own analysis, I want to know if you have data that suggests what you are trying to discuss about the issue of practice and field. Maybe those who teach practice, maybe those who teach in those schools are not, doing the practice, practical aspect of it. Because I know that I have done something, a work, because I'm in dance. I've done a work, trying to talk about what is happening in the universities. That some people are doing what you are trying to suggest. For instance, here where I was from, Oye has one of the best theaters in Nigeria. Oye is just one of the new schools. Okay, and Funai also has a theater. And what some of these schools are doing, they recruit some people who were in practice and have improved themselves and move them to field. So there are schools who have very sound people who are in both sides of the divide. So maybe I would also want you in your work to try to get data that speaks that this school don't have this. So that,
Very difficult.
no, I mean, as not have, maybe just doing maybe a sample.
Yeah.
Use the sample method to say maybe in the west, in the north, in the east, this is some schools, more schools don't have this, or most schools don't have this. That could also help. So it doesn't look as if you're just trying to pontificate, come up with ideas in here. So
Okay, 30 seconds. Please. Next person.
Okay, please. Yeah, I must confess that I'm not an expert on theater. I'm a historian, but a cultural anthropologist. And my question is directed to the first two presenters and him, Oga said that I'm interested about the issue of how modernity has actually affected the theater or the production of knowledge, African knowledge in theater. And the question of subjectivity and objectivity, right? The telling of African stories, what stories are told, how they are told. For instance, in my field, one of the things I'm thinking about is how the new concept of platform capitalism is shaping what stories are told and how they are told. And the question of objectivity, all right, to replicate true representation of African stories. Right, you understand Netflix and all the modernization taking place. So the popular culture just want to about African history and values without necessarily understanding its integrity, whether most of these are fictionalized knowledge or they are real objective stories.
Thank you so much.
And then last, so the Oga, sorry, pardon, who said that there are now digital tools that could replicate Dundee sound. I'm a saxophonist and multiple instrumentalist. So I'm aware that guys use digital technologies to even reproduce any sound you want from any percussions or drums and stuff.
Wait. Okay, let's start please. Number 5.
All right, thank you so much. My question is, it's not really a question, it's an observation, because I feel this age, we are losing the notes in terms of cultural observation, even theoretical observation, and the use of AI by this generation, because this topic, when we say the death of theater, yes, filming may not necessarily qualify as what we are talking about as the physical theater. But the knowledge of the theater, if it is not retained, now we have Gen AI creation of images that is replacing the normal action by humans. Now we now have, in fact, you don't need to study costume. I mean, you don't need to spend money buying costumes to produce Gen AI scripts or clips, images. Once you have what you want to do, you design it to be becomes and it needs to show the face of the theater. So that's the point I'm trying to look at the depth of theater production. So what is the face of the theater? I don't know.
I like your question. I like your question. Let's have the last question of this round. Then we can get more questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Listen in here today. I have comments, not really a question. I'm going to go to my comments. I have to comment on what the second comment to something about your future something like that. I said that you asked him to get some something or review about those three. But I'm thinking that will be another subject entirely. Yeah, that should be another for another scholar because that's what he was focusing. He was focusing on. And now talking to the extension of going to the audience that seminars to talk about what their feelings about it. So you should be able to get it to another scholar entirely. But now coming to my comment to you is you know. We go. I align myself with the first speaker that said that when maybe you do some research on the concept of talking drum. You know that now he said, even something. When we say talking drum does not really mean the drum. I'm a Yoruba specialist. Also in African yes. Now, talking does not mean only talking does not mean do. When you go for research, you know, you give to see that there are many drums. Gong has said that I cannot gong Ushayi, the economy does mean decrease that gong itself can talk. We know how to type of stuff gong. They are not called and all these drugs, many drugs in Yoruba society and the Yoruba tradition, they have Yadu and the other have the Omele. Yadu will be talking in the front and Omele will be backing it up. But I'm saying that you can do more research on it. It cannot be only do the drumming. I mean, it's a talking drum.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I don't know how to go, but I believe that I'm done so much research. So let's quickly sense this round of questions.
Let's say, come and do so. I don't like it or not. If you talk about drum in Oyo, which one is talking from that everybody do it? And like I said, every drum talks. But Yoruba say that the Englishman say that's a talking drum. Then that means if you don't know how to, don't go this forward, that is placed of that piece. You do the one you hold, and you do needs those things. Okay. That's so I said it before. I said all drums can talk. Even after you drum, they talk to the drum, so all drums talk. But because to for Yoruba man, we always call it talking drum. It's only the drum that they call talking drum. In all drums that I know in Nigeria, all the drums talk.
Sometimes I think it's not about saying to the flow, that's what it is. Sometimes that's where I feel. We have questions. Okay, so I'll move to the next.
I was asking
I you know, so that's comments, yes, sharing. Okay, any comments? Any response?
The question is actually very broad. I don't know how I can streamline my answer, but I think I get your perspective because I would link it into a paper that I wrote recently, but in terms of costume aspects. For example, I feel like in this area of digitalization where we put our movies on Netflix and all, in as much as creativity is essential, directors have their own, creative input when they want to put out historical movies. I also feel like personally, even if we are creative, we still have to make sure that we don't lose the truth, the historical part. For example, I don't want to mention the name of
the film, but there was a particular film that I watched, and in terms of the costume aspect, I saw that the representation of a particular character's costume was not real. And this play is on Netflix, whereby different people from different parts of the world could see that. People that are not from Nigeria could resonate that, okay, this is how an Igala, what they call the king in Igala, thank you. You think that's how the Ata of Igala, that is how, he dresses. But no, in the movie, that's not how the real Ata of Igala dresses. In fact, the most important aspect of his dress, which is the emblem, the marks that is there, that is usually on his, outfit, was not there. So what are you portraying? So I get your perspective. I don't really know how to, streamline that answer, but I think we as creatives, you also have to work on that. In as much as we want to put our creative input, we shouldn't lose the authenticity of what we want to, try to create.
That was what I did when I said that challenge the all as scholars is to document and critique and nurture. So it's not left to us as scholars, because really the creatives don't have that time to really, because they're working with time. We are the ones who need to go in depth and do a proper research. That's not how it ought to be.
As a matter of fact, I also think that we should be documenting the just how. I mean, if we don't do that, and who's going to do it for us? So we have to. I don't want anybody to tell my story. I'm just responding. I'm asking how, but I want to be the one to tell my story. Yes, because no one writes it better.
You talked about spirits. Not me, I'll be with seminarians, and I'll tell you the reason why. You spend like 8-9 years if you want to be a priest. Now, sister, spend like 11-12 if you want to be a religious. And in your formation, you must study philosophy and religion. So, not religion, your own Catholic religion, but the other religions. Nobody talks about ATR now because it tends to like stereotype us, but the religions of people around them. You need to know the people you want to preach to. So that's for us. It's something social, but we have tended to look at it as if it's also like religion in terms of that. So we need to be very careful sometimes how we use Western precepts and software to color that. When you mention cross-dress, let me just quickly I don't think that is okay. Years ago, I was at a seminary for women in LMA, Daughters of Charity, and the women were doing the play and they dressed like men to do the performance. So for me, that's very, again, I wasn't in the theater there, but just looking with hindsight, it just happens. So if someone wants to now begin to color, write it as a cross-dressing, transgender, it tends to like diminish what they are doing.
Exactly.
And that's why I'm very careful
Yes.
with this. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry, Sam. I'm so sorry. So when it was I remember there was an experience I had where I don't care when we came to Nigeria. And we had to perform with all our costumes, our traditional attire. And then he was there too. It was the dance. We were told that we couldn't do the dance because we had all those traditional elements. Yes, whether we like it or not, it has really changed. It is beginning to accommodate so many things, and it's going to get better. And I would say worse. So whether somebody tries the traditional costume or somebody tries to improvise the costume, theater is theater. So sometimes I would even say that do not bother yourself so much about documenting the theater of those parts. And so people have done that. If there's anything we're supposed to be doing right now, because before you know it, all of us are gone, is that we should be documenting the theater of our own time. It is very, very important.
To answer your question, if you talk of guitar, yes. However, so that I don't end up indicting people, I need to be careful in how I present my guitar. That means I need to add some kind of diplomacy in it. There is data, but I should be diplomatic in the way I present my data. I can give you, number one, I am a drummer, I am a dancer, I am an actor. I am a total theater practitioner. So I've been to schools, but presently I am a resource person in a university. So I have been to schools, I've been to theaters owned by higher institutions, having gone through higher institutions, and I'm telling you from one, from data that I've collected, two, from experiential learning. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm not trying to also defend it, but I know that many theater graduates. I don't want to. I mean, he just talked about diplomacy, and I totally agree with him. How many of us are actually theater graduates? Sometimes you ask a student after 4 years, so what do you want to do? And the student's response is, I don't really know. It means that you have failed, or that student has failed him or herself. But so, I mean, in research, you are not allowed to generalize. You know, we work with data, facts, and figures and all that. But there are times that you just have to hide under one finger. If the thing inside you. Taking another set of questions. I'm really enjoying this conversation here. And we only have less than 15 minutes. Let us have new master search. Okay, I'm going to count it. He actually put us, his hand was up.
No, it's not the same. It's not
Number one.
Can give you special something, no, but you can.
No, he actually put up his hand there. And I have to acknowledge the presence of that shake. Yes.
Yes.
So, ready? 1, 2, 3. Please, let's have women move. Let's play some kind of gender balance here. Yeah. Yes. 1, 2, Madam, 3, 4.
We have a guest online one.
Okay. 4, 5, and 6. Let's have the guest. Something like that. Yeah. Let's have.
All right. Good afternoon, Mrs. Catherine.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I really enjoyed the conversation and I just wanted to, I'm not asking a question, I'm just making a comment. So I think considering the definition of theater and what theater performance stands for, and the introduction of AI, as much as we want to say that theater is not dead, I just want to say that we might look at it that something is coming up. There is something new coming up, which might redefine what theater is. And I think it's high time we start looking for what to call this theater. It might still be theater, but there might be a new way of defining it and looking at it, because it would totally reshape what we think or what we assume is theater or what is real as theater. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I even think that there's resurgence of the theater as we speak. Look around you. When Nollywood was introduced a couple of years ago, it sort of drowned the existence of the theater. So look around you now, a lot of people are practicing theater. In your little curriculum, you find people doing a lot of things. Let's not talk too much, let's have.
Yes, I just want to make a
Yes.
that theater over time has proven to all of us that it's kind of like COVID-19 did not put theater. I would say AI become another just come and go because every innovation is just moments. After we go and then and now we must always go back to nature. That's the desire to be in not the capability. Before COVID-19, there were theater performances happening online, like 10 years before it. They just thought that, listen, I did like about 3 projects, the British Diamond by Professor Gary Mann, directed by media companies during COVID-19, the long distance that there was out of basically all of things happened. And I thought that they generated all of this because of COVID-19. They said, no, they've been at it for years, where they just thought that theater can happen virtually. So, whatever we see today that's so amazing, AI and all of those things, in a few years, then people will always start to be that innate in man that desire to be in community, to be in the space. So theater, we shouldn't even be thinking about it. People understand, we know the history of theater, that it's that way of going up and then coming down, and you understand the story. You know, educated. Broadway did not kill, I mean, Hollywood did not kill Broadway. So there's no way Nollywood to put the kids to live theater. And last one in the life notes, art's supposed to imitate life. But life is not imitating art. Once you are mass, it's going to our politics and see what happens there. So these things are always done. It's just a question of where you want to place it. It already comes on the conventional phase that it comes here. So when it happens in the House of Assembly of churches.
About it, when you sit down to talk about it, when you have those arguments, it's still theater. It's performance. When you talk about I mean, what for drink here, it's for fun. Yes.
I was going to say that it's a special
Yes. Let's not restrict our idea and ideology of the theater. That's when you write the stage. This is the stage. Let's have the next contribution, madam.
John, my question is to you. I'm quite intrigued by your presentation, especially where you narrowed it on the drawing, interpretation, and all that. I want to ask, is there any connection? Is there any relation between what you just presented, while drum will be saying another thing, and people that don't understand the meaning will be taking another thing, thinking that they will judge? Is there any connection with social life in society where this is also? It's not a race each question anymore. I'm just trying to connect to one or two connections. Is there any connection at all in such lifestyle?
You think about the question, right? But that's a very good contribution. I think I like that. I like it. I just manage the time. Number 3. Yes,
Thank you. Firstly, I'm very happy to this panel. Anyway, I'm also doing I am a doctoral work was comparing Nigeria technical tradition and traditional problems. So, hold on. First of all, we come to you and talk about how important it is for us not to forget the ancient dramatic performances. The important thing is for us to ensure that people know about it and they can compare it with what is going on now. And so we're not just consuming what is new, but we're able to look at what has taken place, what's taking place, and then we look where we're going. Then I also want to talk about, I've been to university for like 30 years teaching, and I'm not putting a lot of those statements you made were too sweet. So I agree. I mean, NUC would not approve the accredited department that is not planning to go faster. I can tell you that in free. So if they're doing that, that's anomalous. And you shouldn't just create an impression that you want to be diplomatic. You should be able to give, even if you're not referring to just this there, you should be able to say, I've been to 3 or 4 universities, I'm sure of this and that. And then it will be a big problem that needs attention, urgent attention. You can't produce graduates of theater arts or performance or whatever that have never been in speech. That's what Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Number 4, yeah. It's another masquerade.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm honored to be here. My first observation is to Dr. Israel, sir, because I also documented a cross-dresser at Osun Osogbo, and I really got fascinated with. I was about to say with him. He was so authentic. So where do we draw the line between performance, cross-dressing, and we critics when we start to say gayism or whatever? That aside. To Dr. Azubike Ekeji. I didn't go into the 4 walls of the university to study theater, where I'm a theater practitioner. So, you fascinated me because my boss friend, mentor who taught me theater started, quickly you mentioned 2 ways. The Alarin Joe of the Ogundes who did not go to school, and those that are being taught in the four walls of the university. Now, I learned from Shegun Adefila, who started a troupe without going to school. He came in to concretize his knowledge. And I learned tremendously. I can tell you that, what some students will not have learned, I learned from him. I also learned visual art from students who went to University of Lagos Creative Arts, Bolu, Art Alade, and everything. So my take is, there are so many professionals, theater professionals, practitioners out there who are not lecturers, who are not intellectuals, but they are at the top of their game. When do we begin to bring them, purposely bring them like Sonny Ade and bring them into our music department and all this kind of things?
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to see all of us tomorrow again. Let's continue this conversation tomorrow. We cannot tell you. So let's we only have 5 minutes. And then
I'm sorry, I have that video of that man here.
oh,
So everybody can, it was so
sorry.
Yeah, I want Dr. Israel. I love what you showed the other time in your presentation. I don't know. We are technically inclined to theatre. I saw quite a huge concentration. Costume, lights, stage, and all. I need your perspective of if there was any review at the end of the production. What exactly were you saying? The talents at the time. How did they judge, the production in terms of technical?
Okay, last question.
Which not do this one.
Okay, did I give you number 5 or 6? 6. That's okay. Apologies, you're one of us.
Okay, sir, you spoke about talking about a situation whereby sometimes those listening do not get finances because drummers do not investigate the sex that they have with the training. So I'm coming from the aspect of communication. If theater is going to create a situation whereby there's a cooperation of meaning, like she said, how can we now bridge that gap whereby the person is listening and probably perceiving a different message or getting a different message, while the performers have their own message. So there might be a dilution of message or meaning. The cooperation of meaning will not happen if everyone are not on the same psychological space. So how do we? Yeah.
I think we'll take one more question and then.
Kind of statement. So the question I answered, the one I was talking about using AI trying to imitate human beings now and everything like that. I to believe that AI is technology. And there's a saying that so John helpful. Exactly. Everybody has tried different ways of bringing out their own creativity. Exactly. One can develop it via AI. Exactly. As long as the theater does not die, and I want to believe that's the point of our discussion.
Yes.
That's the focus of our discussion. I can use it and one of us using AI to develop whatever it is I have to develop. Why not AI? So not totally condemn AI. I've seen people condemn new technologies anytime they come. When automatic gate they condemn it, but then now we are using it. Electric car came by force. They'll condemn it. What is at the end of the day, by the time we take a critical look at it, we'll discover that it's helpful. It's not painful. Exactly. But one thing I like to just say is that let's not disconnect from what we know, the original research. Because the problem I have, the challenge rather, I have is that the people that use this AI do not do their research. They just come out because of the way they feel. It's not left for us here to rewrite that story.
Thank you, my big brother. Thank you so much. So I don't think we should ask them any questions. Definitely, let's just talk. Now, when you were talking about AI, I think that theater is generative and regenerative. If you understand the idea behind what's this Steve masquerade thing? We could know that AI is not coming to outsmart the theater in any way. Because theater will recreate itself one way or the other. Even if I'm going to bring those AI generated characters or humans to the stage, it will still be theater. It will still be theater. Theater is light. You cannot. Theater will never die. That will be our conclusion. It will regenerate itself one way or the other. It will speak to our present. And possibly, when we remember futurism, you know, it will possibly talk about our future. I'm just hungry. I am hungry, but I would like to invite all of us again to this panel tomorrow. It's been nice to have all of it. And this is very wonderful contributions. Thank you so much.